everything legit. The Nimi Meta Podcast. Episode 4 of Everything Legit, Season 2, Nimi Meta here. Thank you so much for joining me yet again for another episode. And if you are brand new to Everything Legit, well, hey, thanks for being here. I appreciate you. And you have a lot of catching up to do. I tend to, in my episodes, go back to kind of recap in case there is anything that you've missed. But do have a listen back to Season 1 and you'll get to know why I am the way I am is the only way I can put it. First of all, before we get into the episode, I want to say a big thank you to Rove Downtown Hotels and their beautiful podcast studio, which is the home of Everything Legit Season 2. So happy to be here. And episode 4, let's get straight into it, shall we? Am I a good Indian? This is a topic, a question which I tend to ask myself all the time. And, you know, no matter where you are from in the world, let's just replace the word Indian with wherever you're from. And I feel like this is an identity crisis that many of us have. Many of us who are originally from a country but have been brought up in a different society or a different Western culture. There is this kind of catch-22 of where do I belong, right? A lot of people who perhaps have two parents who are from different cultures and backgrounds, you may feel this as well. Am I being a good fill in the blank? People who are living abroad, away from their roots, away from their culture, away from their family who hold such strong roots and traditions, which is the category that I fall into, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a struggle. Am I being a good Indian? Now, to give you a bit of a background of who I am, if you're just joining us, I am a British Indian, born and raised in London, with, of course, strong Western influence, but of course, again, with strong Indian roots as well. Both of my parents are Hindu. I myself identify as a Hindu. But like I said, growing up, strong Western influences. Of course I would be. I'm growing up in a Western society. I went to school with predominantly English children. I was a strong minority. I was one of 2-3 Indian or of color people in my class or in my school. And I struggled between the traditional household, I don't want to say rules, the traditional household values and traditions, I guess, versus what I would see in school and what my community or what my peers, what my classmates would represent. And so I feel still to this day, as an almost 30-year-old woman, that I don't represent either. That I'm kind of in no man's land, in the middle. I don't belong in the Western world and I don't belong in the Indian world, and neither of them fully accept me, and I don't feel like I fit into either of those molds. So where am I? Who am I? What am I doing? And what do I represent? Now, I feel like if you relate to this, we have quite literally created our own breed of people. And it can be tough for a lot of people to not feel accepted. But for those of you who feel like me, which is quite empowered, that I'm actually creating a brand new, a brand new species of person. I am second generation, third generation in the UK. My grandparents moved from Uganda, Africa, over to the UK. My parents were very, very young when they moved over, so they were pretty much raised in the UK as well. So I'm third generation in the UK. Therefore, I very much believe the UK is my home. My parents still struggle with that. My grandparents never accepted that the UK was their home. But now, as someone who has moved abroad away from the UK, I now live in the UAE, which is just an absolute melting pot of cultures. And I feel so, so lucky to be here because for once in my life, I am not a minority. And it's such a great feeling. I never knew what that would feel like. Being brought up in the UK, of course, being of Indian descent, I was a minority. Majority looking down the street or in the mall, you would just see white faces. And that was just what I was used to. But here in the UAE, I feel so comfortable. I feel at home, and it's a beautiful thing. I also feel like, there's huge generational differences. And I talk to my parents about this all the time. And am I a good Indian is a question that I really try to answer all the time. I ask my parents the same question. And religion really comes into play here. And I don't want to get all religious and preachy. No matter what religion you follow, I feel like this may apply to you. And there are huge generational differences at the moment. When I was growing up, for the first maybe 3-4 years of my life, I was in a large extended family home. That was with my grandparents, that was with my uncle and aunt, that was with my cousins, all of us living in one household. And my grandparents were very, very religious. All I remember growing up was waking up in the morning, hearing them ring their bell that they ring during prayers. I would hear them chanting, and it was such a beautiful, soothing thing. It was something I was so used to. And there was a rule in the house that you do not continue your day or even start your day without going to the prayer room, saying your prayers, taking prasad, which is a food offering that you offer to God, and taking that, and only then can you start your day, right? So that's all I knew. Wake up in the morning. Before we go to school, we would have to go into the temple room, take blessings from our grandparents, and then take blessings from God, do our prayers, eat the prasad, and then we can go downstairs and carry our day out. And I observed that as that was the only way to conduct your life, and which was a great thing. I had no problem with it. It's all I knew. And then, we moved out. It was just the four of us, my mum, my dad, my sister, and myself living in a home. And my parents carried on the tradition. So we had a temple room, and every single morning we would light a divo, which is like a candle that we would light to start our prayers. There would be prasad. There would be the prayers that we say every morning. And I would just follow the prayers that my mum would usually say, which is just continuous song prayers, I want to say. And I would just do that. And then as I was getting older, I felt as though I would just be rushing through it. I felt like I had to do it. I didn't feel like I truly understood the reason as to why I was doing it. So you can imagine getting into my teen years, it would be the most rushed moment of my day, which was, okay, I have to quickly fit it in before I can get up and get on with my day, because I knew I had to do it. So I would be there, quick 1 minute, light the divo, quickly say my prayers in like super express remix version, and get up and leave the house. And I wouldn't even think twice about it. And then finally I hit around 16, 17. And my dad came to me and he said, I've noticed you are not doing your prayers in the morning because your candle isn't lit. Because I go to do my prayers and yours is the only one that isn't lit. And I said, Dad, it's okay. I do my prayers in my head. And he said, no, you have to do them in the temple room every single morning. That's how we do things. And I said, but Dad, I believe God is everywhere. If I believe God is everywhere, I don't have to go to a specific place and do my prayers there and then. I can do them from anywhere in the world, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing. And he completely disagreed with me. He asked me to continue doing the prayers. And quite honestly, it fizzled out. I just stopped doing it and I never did it again. And that to me was a moment. Now looking back on it, it was a moment that I changed a generational cycle, which now I speak to my parents about, certain religious days of the year, certain dates in the calendar where we're told we have to fast, we're told we have to do certain things, we can't eat certain things, we have to do certain prayers and sit down and do this. a lot of these traditions and religious staples, I only did because I was told to do them. I never truly understood why I was doing them. And I think that's why it fizzled out, because I never truly knew the meaning of it. I speak to my parents now, and when my mum calls me from halfway across the world, she's like, Nimi, tomorrow is a particular religious day and you have to fast. And I say to her, and total respect to everyone who does fast and believes in it, this is nothing against you at all. I just think it's a personal belief. I don't believe that God wanted me to fast. Otherwise, he wouldn't have created food. Otherwise, he wouldn't have created certain things for me to conduct my day as normal. If anything, he wouldn't want me to starve or feel like I have to do it in his name. He would want me to do it only if I felt truly that I wanted to. And so I constantly struggled with that. And so some days you would find me doing the fast that my mum wanted me to do, and some days I would catch myself not doing it. And so much guilt was attached to it, right? Of course there would be, that everyone else in your family is doing it and you're not. And I would ask my mum, Mum, why are we doing this today? You're asking me that, you're telling me I need to do this. Why do I need to do this? And bless her, I do not blame my mum at all. And she said, I don't know, because my mum told me I have to do it. So you see where this cycle keeps going round and round. And, you know, as we are a generation which is a lot more, air quotes, woke, I do question every single piece of information that is thrown at me, and not in a necessarily bad way. I never sit there and try to question my parents on their beliefs. I fully respect it and I fully support them. But that's just not how I want to go forward with it. I have a different way of going about my religion, my prayers, my conversations with God. And as a generation, I feel like we are carving our own way. We don't necessarily have to go to the temple every day. We don't necessarily have to do certain things that previous generations felt like they had to do just because they were told to do, or maybe they knew the true meaning. I just personally was never explained it. And this brings me on to the fact that as generations go on, we are exposed to way more things than previous generations were. You know, nowadays we have prayers on YouTube that we can access. I don't necessarily have to learn it off by heart. It's there. All the lyrics are there for me to learn. We're exposed to a lot more religions out there. We're exposed to a lot more different people from different backgrounds and cultures. So you're a lot more accepting of other beliefs as well as questioning your own. Put religion aside, but other traditions and cultures within my Asian/Indian society that I feel like we are breaking as a generation and questioning ourselves as to why we are good Indians or not, is because our previous generations just didn't open their eyes to it, and again, we're not exposed to it. For example, this is just a random conversation that I was having with my parents the other day, and that was the topic of freezing eggs. You know, I'm almost 30 years old. I know a lot of people that have been doing it here in Dubai, and I think it's a great, fantastic thing to do. And my parents were flabbergasted. They were shocked that anyone would even do this. They don't even understand the concept because they have never had to think about it. You know, whereas us as a generation are super forward thinking. We are exposed to so much more information at our disposal, the internet, social media, where we are thinking about these things. And they just thought, you're crazy, freezing your eggs. What do you mean you won't be able to have babies one day? No, mum, dad, that doesn't mean I'm not able to have babies one day. That just means that I'm doubling my chances in case. You know, we are such a risk generation where we want to cover all options and all paths in case anything goes wrong. And I'm so here for it because I'm that type of personality. Another type of topic which I feel like makes me question whether I'm a good Indian or not is my career. Now, being a good Indian growing up, I was told, you know, a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, basically a proper profession, a proper job that they can go on and tell Auntie G and Uncle G that they're so proud that their granddaughter is doing or that their daughter or son is doing. And well, clearly, as you can see, that is not what I followed. And for a long time, and I remember this conversation, I will never forget it. And that was when I got the results of my A-levels. And I did not do very well on my A-levels. Kids, I did not, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I wasn't an academically strong individual, and I never claimed to be. I knew I was more of a creative, and I knew I was more of a sporty person. But I got the results for my A-levels, and I was terrified. I didn't know if I was gonna even get into university. But more than that, I wasn't even worried about my academics. I wasn't worried about what university I was gonna get into. And I know a lot of people will relate to what I'm about to say. I was more worried about whether my parents would be proud of me or not. And that stems from a deep-rooted issue in our society and culture, which was you don't fit into the official norm, which is the official route of professions, doctor, lawyer, accountant. If you don't fit in that route, you feel like there's something wrong with you. Now, never, ever, ever did my parents ever put that pressure on me. Never did they ever make me think growing up that I had to go down any of these routes. In fact, my parents were amazing. They were like, whatever you want to do, you can do. But it was society. It was our community. You know, what do you hear when you're growing up? When you hear your grandparents raving about someone, or when you hear Auntie G and Uncle G talking incredible things about someone, it's because of their accomplishments, right? Like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so's son's daughter's cousin, and she became a doctor, and now she practices, and now she's actually a surgeon, and she owns her own hospital, and she's earning millions and millions of pounds. And that's all you hear, right? You hear them talking incredible things about these people, and you hope one day your grandparents and your parents can talk about you like this to someone else. And I feel like I felt I wanted to do that for my grandparents. I wanted to do that for my parents. But that pressure that I put on myself to be academic just wasn't going to happen, quite frankly. I was never going to get those grades. I was never going to be a doctor. No matter how much I put my mind to it, I was never going to be a doctor, because that is just not what I was meant to be. It wasn't my passion. It wasn't what I love to do. It just wasn't for me. And when I got those results for my A-levels and I found out I flopped hard, I remember my dad wasn't in the country. He was in India on a business trip, and I called him and I was sobbing tears. And he was like, what's wrong? Why are you so upset? It's fine. The results don't mean anything. We know what you can do with your life. This doesn't determine your future. And I was so upset. The only question I asked my dad on that phone call was, do you still love me? That was the first question I asked him. And I'm getting super emotional now, even thinking about it, because my dad's reaction was, oh my God, I'm getting so emotional. Oh my God, Nimi, get it together. My dad's reaction to it was, are you crazy? I love you now more than I've ever loved you. And, oh, Nimi, get a grip. It was at that moment that I realized no matter what I do, and no matter what I can say or do in my life, my parents will always be proud of me and they will always love me. My dad to this day continues to say to me, and so does my mum, no matter what you do, even if you are stocking shelves in our local grocery, I will still love you and I will still be proud of you and I will still be screaming about you from the rooftops. And that's why, you know, if you're young right now and you're listening and you feel pressure from your parents, or you feel pressure from older generations or society or the community that you're within, all I can say to you is you need to find people who believe in you no matter what. It may not be your parents, it might be your siblings. I have an incredible sister who believes in me more than I believe in myself. You might find friends who believe in you more than you believe in yourself, but I don't think it's fair for us to put that pressure on ourselves. Me questioning myself, am I a good Indian? Just because I haven't followed the career norm is so wrong, and so much pressure on a kid that doesn't need to be there. So I'm hoping that this conversation within our society and within our communities changes as we go. Because I do feel like now traditions aren't being followed as much as previous generations would have liked them to be followed. And that's because we are creating our new traditions. And I am so proud of that. You know, as someone who is married, but of course doesn't have children yet, I'm still thinking of how I would like to raise my children. And that is with an open mind. That is with not allowing previous traditions to force or determine new traditions. I am open to anything. If my kid comes to me and says, Mum, I don't want to pray the way you pray, or I don't want to pray at all, I have my own way of talking to God, that's totally cool, man. Go do that. I support you, but I will never put pressure on them to feel like they have to do a certain thing without even truly understanding the meaning of it. I feel like that was a super therapy session, and I hope that you related to that. And I got really emotional there. If you want to watch me cry, you can watch this on YouTube for sure. But I hope that you did relate to that in any sense of it. You know, you don't necessarily have to be Indian, no matter what cultural background you are from. I feel like all of us going through this can really pave a new way for the generations to come and change the conversation within our societies. So I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Do leave comments. Let me know what you're thinking. If you relate to this in any way, if you don't agree with certain things that I've said as well, I would love to hear your opinion. You can DM me as well on Instagram @thenimimeta.